Our next presentation is from not only our chief, Chief Blackwell, and Chief Goodrich is here from the University of Cincinnati, and we thank, yes, and Sergeant Ryan Smith is going to be a part of this. I don't know if he is, his name is here. Please come forward also. Obviously, there is a national discussion about cameras and the safety of our officers. And, you know, City Council had a discussion some decades ago, and I say this very respectfully because I think Councilmember Wimburn probably was a part of those or knows very much about them, is were we going to have cameras in cruisers? And in that discussion, my understanding and my read of it was there was some initial resistance. What we have found out is that the cameras in the cruisers protect our professional police department, and what we're talking about here is another tool to protect our professional police department and also provide information to citizens of what's happening. So this is, and what's also awesome about this is that I had this conversation with the chief probably, so I don't exaggerate, 2 months ago. Might even been 3 months ago about this. So this isn't new to the chief. I want to just say that publicly. I don't see the chief reacting to what's happening nationally. The chief has been, this has been out there. The chief has been working on it. We've met about it one time. I know that in my conversation, as I recall our conversation, Chief, that you were even looking at specific providers with this technology. But I just want to lay the groundwork that you're not being responsive to what's happening, in the sense you've been proactive about this, and this is something that you've been talking about. I also want to acknowledge Courtney Porter, who is here, and want to thank her for clerking, and Lieutenant Colonel Bailey. So I just want to kind of just keep these housekeeping things going. And Chief, welcome. We have about 15 to 20 minutes for this subject matter. Right. I want to make sure that our committee understands that we have 2 other presentations, one on chronic nuisance that will be quite involved, and we want to make sure we leave time for that. And then we have some things on our agenda that we need to vote on. So, Chief, welcome. I'm going to hit the lights, and thank you so much for taking the time to present at Law and Public Safety today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members. As you just spoke of, we have been looking at this technology for about 6 months, and we have been doing research so that when we do pick a particular camera and we have a body camera model, it is state-of-the-art and defensible. So there are a lot of issues around body cameras. When should you record? When should you not record? Do you have the right to record in a private residence? Do you need consent in those situations? There's a whole host of technology issues dealing with storage and retention and recoverability. And in Ohio, with the public records laws being as robust as they are, that is a very important part of the camera project. So we had to look at all of those issues and how they emerge. And then we had to, quite frankly, just look at which camera did the best job for our officers. Which camera gave the best audio, which camera gave the best vision, not only in daytime, but in the nighttime as well. So we looked at 2 cameras, 2 of the bigger companies that are out right now, the Taser camera and the VView camera. And in these models, we looked at whether or not we should cloud host or do it on a server. And that's a big issue as far as expense. I might also add that one of the reasons we've been really...
Chief, I apologize, is that the cloud host server, is there also a connection for security on those 2 things? Is the security the same for both?
Yeah, we think the security is the same in the cloud. There are a lot of really high-profile, secretive things that are now cloud-hosted. And so we don't think that there are any issues with not having it in your own server, in your own facility. But the cost of server space and all of that is a huge concern because videos take up a lot of space, and we have 1,000 police officers. So we need to really think about this before we dive into it. The other thing is we've done our due diligence, and now we're being mindful of the presidential edicts that have come out recently, and we're hopeful that we get at least half of this paid for by Washington, D.C. I'll be there Thursday to try to lobby for that. So in the taser camera, that was one of the cameras, and I know I only have 15 minutes, and this is about a 2-hour presentation, so I'll skip through really quickly, but the officers significantly did not like the idea of wearing body cameras when we initially started the testing. They were we say robust, ambivalent, or don't want to have it anywhere near them, and they were somewhere between didn't want to have it anywhere near them or ambivalent at best. At the end of the trial, the officers had all moved up to the almost, all of them thought that they wanted to wear them. And we think that is a good sign. The FOP came around, the officers on District 3 that participated in the study liked the cameras, and we're hopeful that we can have a camera program very quickly. So this camera obviously was one of the ones we use, and the reason Taser may sound familiar is because they make tasers, and they're a big company, and they have a lot of back-end support. And so we have to look at that over VIEVU, which is a much newer company, and what they can provide us as well. I'll skip right to the cost. It's pretty expensive. Cincinnati's probably going to need somewhere between, conservatively, $800,000 to about $1.5 million to do the camera project. So obviously, we're hopeful that Washington, D.C. will help that out so that I don't have to come and ask you all for that amount of money. But we are very enthusiastic about body cameras, and we think they work. We think there's been a couple of studies, one in Rialto and one in Mesa, Arizona, and they both lead to similar conclusions. Officers' complaints go down between 60 and 70%.
Chief, I just want to interject about the money, saying, you know, as we look at the budget, whatever happens in D.C., I want to say as the chair, I'm very interested in supporting you here. 800,000 or the 1.5 million, I want to make sure that we continue to stay on the cutting edge like we have done. So for me, I think this is a very important subject matter. So, you know, if we can't get the federal money, let's make sure that we really have a public conversation and talk about where we earmark these dollars in the budget. You know, I'm sitting right next to the illustrious budget chair, Charlie Wimber, so it's always good to have these conversations with him here. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Winburn, for that consideration. This is the VIEVU camera. I can tell you that the officers in our wear tests, and this is a really involved study that you all have in front of you, they preferred the VIEVU camera significantly over the Taser camera. They thought it was easier to use, and to answer your question, it's mounted on the chest on a little clip. The field of view is better, the audio is better. The only negative to this product was at nighttime, the picture was a little grainier and a little harder to see than the Taser camera. And the VIEVU is local storage. It's not cloud hosted, so we would have those servers. We would have immediate availability to retrieve data and video, but then you have the expense of having somewhere between 2 and 4 people that we're going to need additionally to manage this program, to make those public records requests, and to get that video out to people, to the media, and to other public records requests. These are just software stuff. And up here on District 3, this is when we were requiring our officers to record incidents. Obviously, we have to be very mindful of when we are requiring officers to have the cameras on, because if there's a failure or if an officer in a very high-profile incident says that he or she didn't turn it on, the public may make a decision that that was purposeful or negligent or whatever. The reality is, as a chief, I don't want my officers to divert their attention from being safe, even for a millisecond, to turn a camera on. And so there will be times when the camera may not be on. There will be times when it won't actually capture the data that people think they want to see, the video that they want to see. So we require them to have it on when persons suspected of mental health issues while responding to calls for service in emergency mode, lights and siren. and in traffic stops. Those incidents, the officer has a little more discretion and a little more time to think about it prior to exiting his or her vehicle. All requests for consent to search without a warrant, we wanted to record those as well. And searches and deployments of drug detection canines. These are all high-profile incidents that are coming under a lot of scrutiny now based on the things that we're seeing unfold in Ferguson, in New York, and now in Berkeley, California. So District 3 on second and third shift did a 90-day wear test, and now we have the results, and we're ready to move forward. We think that body cameras will allow us to remain on the cutting edge, and I can tell you all that we're getting calls daily from other agencies. Ferguson just announced today that they're going to use our model for their citizens complaint authority in Ferguson, Missouri. And Cleveland, the chief in Cleveland has been in contact with me as well for some assistance in helping them out of the state that they're in now. So Cincinnati is the cutting edge, and we think this body camera program will only help us maintain that distinction. One of the issues is, and you asked this earlier, is do we put them on the glasses, on the hat, on the chest, on the pocket, and all the cameras come with different appendages to connect to the officer. And we think that the one right here in the center of the chest is the best. It obviously can be blocked sometimes if the officer has his or her weapon out or maybe running, things like that. You may not get the picture that you want. But we think that any picture and any audio can enhance officer safety, reduce complaints, and reduce citizens acting out as well.
Chief, I recently saw the body cameras in action on a case. It might have been on CNN. They were profiling or showing that situation. But what was interesting is even though the initial officer was blocked, the other officers who had cameras were capturing it perfectly. So I want to say there might have been 4 officers on the scene all having cameras. So, so when the public is hearing this, is not just, I'm saying something that is pretty obvious, but there could be several cameras on one scene, and the officer that might have his weapon drawn, other officers are capturing the same thing.
Absolutely. That's a very good point. And so if you look here, this is the Rialto case study. Use of force incidents declined by 59%. I think undisputably that is a wonderful benefit of a camera body program, that use of force actually goes down. And we think there are a couple of reasons. First, we think it makes officers behave better, and we also think it makes the public behave better. And I mean, that's a win-win for everybody involved. Officers use force less, officers get hurt less, and citizen complaints go way down. In this study, they were reduced by almost 90% in Rialto, California. And it saves money as well. The cameras save money due to lawsuits that obviously will reduce as well when you have the cameras. The Mesa study has similar results. Officers wearing cameras had 65% fewer complaints than the non-control group. So that's just Group A with cameras. Group B doesn't have cameras. This group had 65% fewer. Then the other study was the group wearing cameras had 60% fewer complaints than they had before they started to wear the cameras, that actual group. There's a little difference there. Both of them are pretty compelling pieces of evidence to suggest that cameras do work. And there again, 77% of officers believe that cameras cause officers to behave more professionally. So I'll stop here because the PowerPoint is very extensive. It gets very technical. But I think the point is that we believe that the body cameras will help us be the best police agency in the United States.
Chief, when the officer just turns on the camera, is there any delay or is it immediately on when they hit that button with the technology?
It is immediately on. However, there is no buffer. Like the cruiser camera buffers and goes back 30 seconds. So that means before, like if there's an accident in front of the cruiser, if the officer would turn his lights on, it would back up 30 seconds and capture that accident that happened if it was within that 30 seconds. The V-View camera does not have that buffer. We don't like that. We prefer that 30-second buffer to capture some things before. The TASER camera does have that 30-second buffer. So.
Yes. Yes. No, I want to open it up because I know I have a lot of questions, but we don't have a lot of time with this, and this is important. We're going to come back and discuss it again, but I want to open it up to my colleagues to ask questions. Councilmember Winburn?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members of this dynamic committee. And dear Chief, appreciate your leadership and all the wonderful things that you're doing and all the citizens that are here today. From the Budget and Finance Committee perspective, I definitely want to help raise the money for this project. I think it's a great project. I just need to ask you just a few basic questions. You think initially, how many cameras do you think we will initially need?
We're thinking we will initially need somewhere around 600.
About 600.
Yes, sir.
So all our fine cops will not have cameras. It'll only the
uniform patrol.
Uniform patrol.
Right.
In wearing these cameras, do you think it could increase more civility? I don't know, is there a sign that says, look, I got a camera on me? Do you think the citizens could respond better? I mean, that could help too. If I know you got a camera on, I may not say as much as I need to be saying, you know.
Well,
so
I think the camera is very visible, and it's very noticeable right in the center of the chest on the officers, and people do recognize and notice them, and I think that at that point, that's when you see the change in behavior.
So when will you need about $800,000?
Well, let me go to D.C. first. I'm going to work as hard as I can and see what the federal government is going to do. We think there's going to be a 50% match come out of Washington, D.C. on body camera programs. We want to be one of the first agencies in line. We're getting asked by agencies all over the state and country now for our study that we've done to save them the work that we've put in. And we are providing that to other agencies. But when I get back this week, Friday, I will meet with you and let you know what that picture looks like financially.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, my last comment on it, from a budget finance perspective, here's one of the ways that I would like for us to fund this project. And I think it's a good project, and I'm glad that the FOP, the police chief, and citizens and the research substantiates us doing this, and not as a knee-jerk reaction, but it's that the right thing to do to increase civility on the part of everyone, the officers, citizens, and I think any time that we could enhance the quality of life for citizens, I think it's great. I see today that we have on our agenda, Mr. Chairman and members of this very fine committee, where you're talking about parking tickets. Now, I've been working on the initiative with Mr. Zeno for the last 6 months, and I have not released yet my proposal on parking tickets. Matter of fact, I would like to see the parking tickets, and we have millions of dollars that's still outstanding, that that we offer an incentive to citizens, and that we would use 100% of those parking amnesty. I want to have an amnesty program like I did before. By the way, when we did the first amnesty initiative with earnings, income tax, and property tax. And I want to thank my colleagues. Who was on council then? Were you on council? I think there was only one on council, and that's my colleague. They supported me, and we had a 9-0 vote, and we raised over $2 million. I think I have the experience to really make the parking amnesty program work. I'm not for sure that I think we ought to be using canned goods and asking citizens to offset the parking tickets. So I would like to use that. I'm working on a plan now. And Mr. Chairman, I think if we can utilize the parking money with this new amnesty initiative that I'm coming out with, and my colleagues at least can take a look at it. I mean, my colleagues would have to support it. I think that's one way of utilizing the parking money in a most effective way. And when we get down to the canned goods situation today on the parking ticket, I have a proposal for that. I think we can help Mr. Silbach and Amy obtain 5,000 canned goods, and I'll have a proposal for that later on in the day. But I don't want to use our leverage of parking tickets on a canned good program when we can handle that ourselves. And it's admirable that we want to feed the poor. Jesus said the poor will always be with us, so we're going to always be feeding the poor, and I want to be helping doing my fair share, but I'm not for sure that I want to use parking tickets to do that. So I want to help fund this and help you find the money for it. Thank you.
Sure. Councilmember Wimber, I'm going to go right to you, Councilmember Simpson. You know, sometimes a card game that I play sometimes is a game called Spades. And in Spades, when you sit down with certain people, you have to describe to them what the big joker is, the little joker, the two, the ace, depending on what part of the country the folks live in, because everybody has a little different rule. Now, when I sit next to my colleague, I always feel like Councilmember Wimburn has the big joker, and he's wanted to trump the chair of law and public safety with the budget chair. But we will, the agenda item, which your chair has graciously placed on the agenda, item number 5, we will get to that item today for a full vetting and a discussion on it. Councilmember Simpson.
Mr. Chair, I'm looking forward to that. That's not what my comment is about, but I am happy to hear the Budget and Finance Chair. Speaking of cameras, I think we have a few right here that have recorded Mr. Wimburn saying he's got your money. So now that we've got that on the record, the playback will be there when we need it.
That's right.
Whatever the source, I'm sure you'll have no disagreement, but the money is there, so you can go in confidence because it's been said here today. I want to never lose the opportunity to say that I think you're doing a remarkable job. I think you're an awesome chair. Keep up the good work. I think you were far ahead of us on this Ferguson issue. I think the fact that they are contacting you is a result of your effort there months and months ago, and I want to thank you for that leadership.
Thank you.
We are proud to call you our chief, and it is in part because of you, but also a great legacy that we do have the best police department in the country, with or without cameras.
Right.
Let's talk about making it better. I'm excited about this presentation. I think it's amazing. I have one concern, and I'm wondering whether or not we've thought this through. So I feel confident that we'll have the right camera, that it'll capture it. I have some concerns about what'll be recorded. You covered some of that, and then how that will be used. So do we have some sort of frame on once the recording happens? Are we talking to prosecutors about when the case comes before a judge, what needs to be recorded, how the evidence will be viewed to make a case, to defend an officer? Because I think we all agree that having more information, especially in this information age, is a good thing, but having the right information, to me, is very, very important.
Right.
We need to make sure that when we have this conversation, and we probably will have this here, Mr. Chair, around exactly everyone understanding this is what will be recorded. This is what will not be recorded. And you kind of had your lens on, we don't want people to believe that by omission, if it's not recorded, that means there's been some sort of guilt. Everyone understands what's being recorded, what's not, and then we have some conversation with prosecutors and judges about exactly what needs to be seen, what needs to be said, what the recording needs to capture in order to make a conviction, if that's what we're aiming at, and to protect an officer if he needs to be defended, if that's what the case involves. So have there been any in the test cases you've seen in Mesa and the other places that we've looked at around how the evidence is used once it's recorded?
Right, and that's a very good question. We're actually trying to craft the policy statements now and to actually codify how we will make this program work. When do the cameras, when are they expected to be on? What are we going to record? We're not going to record in private residences because people can make public records requests, and certainly there are some privacy concerns with that. But we're also thinking about making the platform available to the prosecutors and the judges so that they can retrieve their own data, and that would save the city money so that we wouldn't have to have people working to do that as well, and they can get exactly what they want. Now, we fully expect that most of the recordings to not have anything of value that will either help an officer or be germane in any investigation. And so those recordings obviously have to drop off at a specific time frame in accordance with law. But if we don't drop those off, our storage fees for these videos will be astronomical. And we have to be concerned about that as well, because then the program may not be fiscally responsible. And some programs, in fact, they've squashed their programs because of the volumes of public records requests that they were receiving. They just didn't have the money to do that and to provide those videos to people, so they got rid of the program.
Mr. Chair, just a final thought, and thank you for even that perspective, because records retention rules, how long must you keep certain records, I mean, that all can be very expensive, and we need to make sure that we are following the law on that too, once it's captured. You know, again, I like the idea of having the platform. Have you seen prosecutors or judges be outright in what they expect from these cameras as it relates to making cases? I mean, I know that, and hopefully we can have that conversation here in the county before we implement a program. You know, I can't help but think about the Garner case, and there was video, wasn't body camera video, but it was pretty clear video, and it wasn't sufficient. So we just want to make sure, and that's a part of setting the public's expectations.
Right.
The idea that is, if you record a crime in progress, no matter who it is, whether it's an offender or it's an officer, and it's clearly a violation, that would result in a conviction. We need to make sure that we have conversations with judges, lawyers, and then set the public expectation realistically so that we don't have backlash, and I'm really sensitive to that. So Are those conversations happening now within the county and with other jurisdictions that have implemented this on a test basis?
Well, the other jurisdictions are a little behind us, but they're coming on now at our lead, but that is certainly a major consideration. But the first issue is the conduct and deportment of our officers and the professionalism that we expect and that we get, quite frankly, 99% of the time. So we think the body camera program, we can't really worry about whether or not people find the evidence to be worthwhile or not. We think that the body camera program will just increase our transparency to a level that keeps us as the most professional agency in the country.
Thank you all. Thank you, Chief, for coming. I want to close out with a few highlights. One, I want to give credit to one of our former colleagues, the Vice Mayor, Minette Cooper, who originally talked about cameras in cars at that time. And one of the things, and I've learned this actually from my father, who spent many decades at Procter & Gamble as the first African-American PhD in the United States, that oftentimes he thought are factually his ideas were taken. So what I always do is I never want to be that person that takes other people's ideas or not highlight the good work that other people have done. I remember Council Member Sam Malone, who talked about a gang unit when he was on council, and got a lot of pushback on that. And now we're talking about we have a gang unit. And when the Vice Mayor Minette Cooper raised this issue about cameras, at that time, she got a lot of pushback. But at the end of the day, we now know across the country that the cameras are for the good of our officers. And has provided a lot of evidence and a lot of great information to protect our professional police officers. And I think the same sentiment will be for these body cameras as we talk about them. And I think because of that work that the Vice Mayor did at that time, Minette Cooper did, that this conversation about body cameras is a much easier conversation because of that work. And I want to make sure that I give her credit for her courage to take that step. I also want, I guess, to leave you with, Chief, is that it sounds like, and I don't want to ever speak for my colleagues about their positions on public policy, that there is some consensus from this committee that we would like to see the implementation of body cameras. And I think you can leave here empowered with that information as you go to Washington and come back, and no matter whether we get federal dollars or not, that we start having a real discussion about the rollout of body cameras as your department selects whatever vendor. I like the idea of using some vendor local. And I didn't miss that in your presentation. You know, you could go Taser, which is a publicly traded company, and Taser has been here and given presentations in Cincinnati. And I'm sure there are other vendors out there, but I heard you say you were looking at someone local, and I'm not pushing a contract in any direction. It's just I like hearing that we are giving local vendors an opportunity and their technology. So thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having this research for the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.